Okay, councillors, if we can make a start, please. Councillors. Councillor Harwood. Okay. Evening all. I'm Councillor Paul Wilby, the Chairman of the Planning Committee. I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting. Okay. Nope, still echo. How about that? Okay, that's better. Okay, I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting of the committee tonight. I'll take this opportunity to advise you that if the fire alarm does sound, please remain seated. And members of the Democratic Service Team will assess the situation and give further instruction on the evacuation of the building if necessary. Tonight's proceedings will be recorded by the council, but if anyone else is attending to record these proceedings, can you please let me know now? I ask this question not to stop you, but merely to ensure that members of the public in the room know this is taking place. No indications. Okay. As always, advise members to talk via the microphones, and when visiting members and people wishing to speak on the items, if you come forward, there's a little red button, a little button with a speech on it. Push that button and you get your 3 minutes. You will be held to your 3 minutes. Thank you. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Cleater has sent.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies for absence from Councillors Reardon and Dan Wilkinson, and Councillor Cleater has said that she will be late.
Okay, thank you. Are there any substitute members? No substitutes. Are there any visiting members? Can you come forward and declare what item you wish to speak on?
Thank you. It's Councillor Springett on agenda item 15, 3 Manor Close. Thank you.
Good evening, Councillor Keeley for agenda item 14. Thank you.
Brian Clark on behalf of agenda item 14.
Councillor Stuart Jeffrey, whatever item 51 London Road is.
That's item 19, Councillor Jeffries. Okay, moving on then. Item 4, items withdrawn from agenda. Is there any items withdrawn? No. Okay. Date of adjourned meeting will be the 28th of August, if required. I'm hoping not. Otherwise, Councillor Nagy, you'll have to chair it because I'm not present. Any urgent items? I intend to take the written urgent items that have been dished out, any verbal items updates as well. Is that agreed? Are there? Okay, moving on to item 7. Are there any disclosures by members and officers? No, I see none. Okay, we'll go to item 8. Are there any disclosures of lobbying? As always, I'll work my way around from the left.
Sorry, no disclosures of lobbying. I'm terribly sorry. I missed your request for disclosures by members. I'd like to disclose that I'm a member of Bearsden Parish Council. I'm also a member of the Bearsden Firm Society, but I have played no part in the consideration of the applications on our agenda this evening, and I therefore intend to speak and vote on both of them. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed it first time round. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm the same. I'm a member of Staplehurst Parish Council, but I take no part in the planning issues that come before them. So I will speak and hopefully vote one way or the other on that particular agenda item. But I haven't been lobbying on anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 14.
Items 13, 14 and 18.
I've received no lobbying.
Yeah, item 14.
Okay. Moving on then. Item 9, I move that the items on the agenda be taken in public as proposed. It is agreed. Thank you, councillors. Item 10, I move the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of July 2025 be approved as a correct record and signed. Councillor, Mr. Jarman wants to come in there. Okay. Mr. Jarman.
Just a detailed point, I believe on paragraph 71 on planning committee training report, that there is a proposal for the details of the training to have executive summaries, and that's fine as far as officers are concerned. So we'll just execute that if that's okay with councillors.
Okay. So are the minutes agreed? Agreed. Thank you, members. Okay. Believe there are no petitions this evening. No petitions. Deferred items. I call upon Mr. Jarman to provide an update on the deferred items.
Nothing specific to report, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jarman. Moving swiftly on then, on to item 14, Beacon Park, land north of Heath Road, East Kent.
Stop.
Okay. I call upon the officers to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, councillors. Just a few words from me. Obviously, this site is an allocation in the local plan review, and it's an atypical allocation in that the applicant promoted the scheme at the actual examination in public, and the inspector considered that it was an acceptable site. And in the promotion of the site at the examination in public, what the applicant did, and it makes this allocation atypical, is that he showed what a density of 30 dwellings to the hectare would actually look like on this site, and went into detail on landscape impact, ecology, etc., etc. So I just thought I'd emphasize that point because it is different to the other allocations. Sean will now go through matters in a lot of detail. Thanks.
Thank you. This is an application for full planning permission at land north of Heath Road, Coxheath. The development shall hereafter be referred to as Beacon Park. In summary, the proposal is for the erection of 85 homes comprising new open market houses, which includes 34 new affordable homes, the provision of 1.78 hectares for a local nature reserve, 0.55 hectares for public open space, and associated works to include newly formed vehicular and pedestrian access on Heath Road, as well as new internal roads and a new greenway to the north, allowing for a cycle pedestrian link connecting two public rights of way to the east and west of the site. Installation of public realm works, including public art, pedestrian connections and landscaping. In addition, a sustainable urban drainage scheme comprising ponds, provision of cycle and bin stores. Off-site works include the upgrading of a pedestrian zebra crossing on Heath Road to a puffin crossing and relocation of westbound and eastbound bus stops on Heath Road. So on the screen now, you'll see the site location plan. The site is located to the east of Cox Heath, and the built settlement is here to the west, as well as the countryside being located to the north and to the east. There are two relatively new developments to the east and northeast, located here and here. Heath Road is located to the south of the site, and across the road is the Green Sands Medical Centre, and there's existing ribbon development along residential ribbon development along Heath Road. So here are some photos of the site. So the images focus on the frontage to the scheme. So here is the Green Sands Medical Centre across the road. This is the frontage of the site at present, and as you can see, there's a hedgerow all the way along, and quite a narrow pedestrian footpath. This is looking west towards the crossroads, and you've got the medical centre to the right here, as well as the residential development down to the bottom there. These images show the interior of the site with a pear orchard in the foreground, and this is some existing development with the newer development here, as I pointed out before. Again, this is looking in that westerly direction, and you can see the backdrop of the North Downs to the south there. This is how the site would look if you're looking from the development, which is centred around Kennard Road, and from Murdoch Chase, looking towards the development. So the development would be here and here. And this is the panoramic view here is looking to the south. Again, looking to the south. And then this is bear with me. This is a new development around Lassius Drive, which is accessed from Forstall Lane. So here is the proposed site layout plan. So built development is concentrated to the western side of the development, adjacent to the existing settlement. Landscaping and amenity areas are focused towards the north and east, comprising the nature reserve along here, which runs up the eastern part of the site, with public footpaths, as well as the Suds Ponds. In addition, a setback from the frontage of around 30 metres is at the front here. Oh, I should also point out this is public open space in the north-east. So these are some street scene elevations. They are, for this particular street scene, indicative, as the top image shows the proposed frontage to Heath Road. I should point out that for plot 2 here, the difference that isn't reflected here is that we've negotiated for this particular plot to be finished in ragstone, similarly to plot 4 here. The second image here shows an interior street view of the development, so that's here, and you'll be able to see the apartment blocks there as well. These street scenes here are along the western edge of the development. The greyed out homes at the bottom are located to the east of the public open space, So you can see that in the foreground here. And here are some housing typologies, as shown also within the report. It's just a general selection of the housing types. And I've also brought in some indication of the boundary treatment. So you'll be able to see to the front of dwellings, you'd have this chestnut cleft fencing with landscaping behind. There is some close boarded fencing, but this has been kept to a minimum, as well as there being a ragstone wall feature, which would be located in prominent locations, hopefully emphasizing quality. So I should also point out that there have been a number of amendments made to the scheme since it first came in. And I can summarize them now. They are the erection of, a policy compliant affordable housing mix is now proposed. A redesign of the flats to a contemporary flat roof buildings with the inclusion of private amenity space in the form of balconies and terraces. The cycle and bin store to the flats has been redesigned to reflect the flats and to allow better access for cyclists, and they have been sited further back from the road to allow for more meaningful landscaping to the front. The housing types have been reduced, so the developer has omitted render from the scheme, with an additional ragstone building to the front of the development, as I pointed out. And then there is some repositioned tree planting so that they're in a more prominent street-facing location. And we have also sought to secure approximately 25 further trees into the development. In addition, the frontage of the scheme has been, the pavement to the front has been widened, so to allow for a footpath, a pavement, sorry, of 2.25 meters along Heath Road. So that will, the land take for that will be within the development. A new bus shelter is also proposed to the front within the southwestern corner of the site front and Heath Road. There's a redesigned pedestrian entrance gateway within, with the design being simplified, and the proposed, the crossing initially proposed for the scheme was a pelican crossing. Through discussions with KCC Highways, this is considered to be, it's considered to be more appropriate to be a puffin crossing. And that completes the amendments to the scheme. I should add that since the publication of the report, that a further objection has been received, and this is just for the minutes really, and that was received on the 18th of August. However, that raises no new issues that haven't already been considered within the report. So to conclude, and as set out in the committee report, officers have recommended the proposal for approval, subject to the section 106 and the conditions recommended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can I have Councillor Kelly? Healy, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Like myself, most residents in the area are unhappy about this proposal. They are saddened, fed up and resigned to it. They understand the local plan and the dire housing need in the borough. And to be fair, this proposal appears to be aesthetically pleasing, sympathetically and well thought out on the whole. But let me be clear, the frustrated resignation is not due to NIMBYism or a nostalgic view of the past. The prime concerns about this development now are the very real and present dangers and impacts it will have and affect our lives going forward. It is now about mitigating the damage as far as we can. This is about infrastructure, or rather the lack of infrastructure, and its increasing failure to serve existing needs and demands. And there is anger that despite consistently raising these very valid concerns, they are ignored time and time again. The doctor's surgery cannot cope with current patient levels. Its catchment area extends way beyond Coxheath. A simple blood test is now at least a month's wait. GP appointments are almost impossible to procure. The proposed school extension was shelved last year, and the school is so oversubscribed that children living in the same road as the school, less than a quarter of a mile away, have been unable to secure a place there. Health and educational demands need to be seriously readdressed before this plan is approved. Linton Corner, the scheme costing £2.2 million in 2021, was scrapped. Inflation has pushed that figure up by 500k in real terms. How far will the £170,000 SIL money go towards building this now? The crossing that we've been waiting for over 3 years, and yet more ridiculous build-outs and bollards which will turn Heath Road into a slalom at a snail's pace. These need to be reconsidered as a matter of safety and sanity before this plan is approved. Coxheath regularly has power cuts and almost constant roadworks in the surrounding roads that virtually maroons this village. My inbox is full of road closures due to emergency utility works on a pretty much daily basis. These pipes and old mains are already failing. This needs to be dealt with by KCC and utilities as a matter of urgency before the plan is approved. In June, there were 3 consecutive nights when Coxheath had no water in the heat wave, and the pressure often drops to a trickle. South East Water told us our demand was too high and to use less water. I don't see any input from them in these plans. They desperately need to address future demand and supply before this plan is approved. We know people need homes and houses. This is a good development, but I ask you to please listen to the concerns of those that live there and know the area, and to seriously reassess the exhausted and outdated infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Weaver.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So I suppose I'd like to start with some of the lovely photographs that Sean showed earlier. What you see is what you get at the minute. It's a beautiful pear orchard, a pear tree orchard. And at the moment, by my calculation, 17% of the planned development is outside and a departure from the development plan. I live in Coxheath, and I'd like to agree with things that Claire's just said around the access to Linton Crossroads. We are deeply anxious as a parish council as to the safety on Heath Road. Regularly, the traffic is backed up to the Green Sands Medical Centre from the crossroads. And as someone who personally regularly comes to the crossroads, goes to Staplehurst, then might have to go to Portmont-Chelsea, then down to Lewes, it can be a very difficult journey to get across there. Pavements are in general very small, and although I welcome the wider pavement, that is only a relatively small part of the whole pavement that leads down to the crossroads. The crossing, as described at the moment, Pelican or Puffing, does not exist at the moment. It is not there. And indeed, when the traffic does free flow, it comes along at 40 miles an hour, very fast outside Green Sands Surgery. I'd like to highlight that on several occasions over the last few months, Coxheath residents have been without water. There's nothing in this application that seems to address the water issue, because obviously that's of grave health and safety concern for residents that have no water. And we'd also like for the plans to be considered as a cumulative effect with the fact that Green Sands Place development, which is behind the doctor's surgery and includes a number of organisational buildings, needs to be taken in conjunction with that. In terms of the development itself, we note there's no solar panels on the roof. So on the roofs proposed, which is a disappointment given the current situation with the climate. And so in summary, I'd like to highlight that the application presents major concerns to Coxheath Parish Council for the reasons identified and highlighted in our previous submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Andrew for Luce Parish Council.
Lewes Parish Council wish to see this application refused and do so on two main counts. Firstly, I wish to point out that the application site is just outside Lewes Parish. The parish has long been concerned about coalescence and from development in neighbouring parishes. In recent times, this has been particularly the case along its northwest boundary from development in Coxheath. Development proposals in this application, with its creep towards the Lewes Parish boundary, creates an acceptable coalescence. Lewes Parish Council has an objective to keep this parish identity. Secondly, virtually no improvements to the local infrastructure have been made to support new development. Until there is clear evidence of the required infrastructure, it is considered development in the area would be unsustainable and inconsistent with the premise for development within the local plan. Objections are raised over the inadequacy of roads and their speed restrictions, given existing and potential increases in traffic. Pavements along the busy Linton and Heath roads are narrow. These are routes predominantly and heavily used by school children, and numbers will increase. There is also some history of water shortages in the area. In addition, Lewes will wish to highlight just two other matters. One, it wishes to see the proposed nature reserves, etc., open to all, not just Beacon Park residents. Proposals here do actually afford too much public access, we feel. The management needed to properly maintain the buffer and the nature zones needs to be carefully considered. It is suggested by a management team. Finally, in the design and access statement, the vehicle trip generation data is taken from 2021, a date when the country was coming out of COVID. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Lewes Parish Council Linton Parish Council were not able to attend this evening, so I've met with them and I've considered a number of concerns that they've raised. The parish has a number of concerns as follows. Safety and traffic implications. The proposed development will exacerbate existing dangerous condition on local roads, particularly at the Linton Crossroads, a severe accident hotspot. The culminative effect of this development, in addition to Greensand Place and other nearby approved development, will lead to unsustainable increases in traffic volume on Heath Road and surrounding lanes. This fails to meet the requirement of NPPF paragraph 110, which stipulates that development should ensure safe and suitable access for all users. Paragraph 111 makes clear that development should be refused if it would have an unacceptable impact on highway safety or if the residential cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. Parking issues. Existing developments along Heath Road lack adequate parking, forcing residents to park on surrounding lanes, including Vanity Lane. This creates obstructions that pose safety risks for road users, including emergency vehicles. This contravenes NPPF paragraph 108, which emphasises the importance of mitigating development impacts on transport networks and promoting sustainable transport. Healthcare access. Greensand Healthcare Centre, already under immense strain, faces overspill parking issues and increased demand. Patients are being redirected to Headcorn facilities, increasing journey times and road usage. No updated NHS infrastructure plan is in place to accommodate the growing population from these planned developments. This requires an urgent review. Infrastructure. In order to consider the aggregation in development, statistical evidence and comprehensive assessment should be undertaken to demonstrate that Linton Crossroads and other key areas can safely accommodate the proposed increase in vehicular movements. Overdevelopment. There is a cumulative impact of this proposal together with Greensand Place on the local area. This is an area where the three parishes, as you see, Lewes, Linton and Coxheath, come together, and there's a very real risk of coalescence between all of those villages, something which all of the parishes have been trying to avoid. Infrastructure demands will exceed the capacity of existing infrastructure and services, including roads, schools and healthcare facilities. There's also well-documented water supply issues in the vicinity. The strain on these services is already evident, and this proposal will compound the situation. Linton Parish considers a sustainable urban drainage system and other mitigation measures outlined to be insufficient to offset the environmental and logistical impact of such a significant development. I would also point out the fact that the unusual way this came to the local plan review, this has not had public consultation.
That is your 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Osborne for the applicant.
Good evening, councillors, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I was going to sit here and tell you how wonderful our scheme is, but given that the previous statements, I think I should pick up on some of the points that have been raised. I'm pleased to hear that local councillor finds our scheme to be a good development and that it's well thought out. I certainly think so, and we have worked very hard to achieve that aim. Some of the points, particularly in regard to public examination. So the public examination, the site did go through public consultation, and through the examination we demonstrated to the inspector that it was the most sustainable site in the location for selection, and that it did not cause coalescence, and coalescence was mentioned specifically by the inspector in his report. I'm sure Rob might well have more details on that. In regard to highways, Sean, our case officer, who I think has put together a very good report, I think one thing that has missed is during the course of the application, us and the applicants of Greensand Place held a meeting with KCC Highways and have agreed to extend the 30-mile-an-hour zone from Linton Crossroads right the way along. So that will help with highway safety. We've also agreed that the build out will be removed and will be replaced with a 30-mile-an-hour repeater sign. That again was all part of that common and collaborative meeting with KCC. In terms of concern about a cumulative effect, the decision taking on Greensand Place was made after Beacon Park had been allocated. So members of the committee who voted for Greensand Place did so in the knowledge that Beacon Park for 85 homes would be coming forward as an allocated site. There isn't very much we can do about education or about highways other than to make our financial contributions, and that we are committed to do. I believe that we've brought forward to you a very good scheme and one that is worthy of your support, and I thank you for supporting it if you can tonight.
Okay, same Mr. Osborne. Okay, we have no ward councillors actually here on this, so Councillor Harwood has indicated first of all, and then yourself, Councillor Summerskill. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you. I think that Mr. Jarman's introduction right at the beginning is germane to this application. I mean, firstly, this is an allocated site in a very recently approved local plan review. So the principle of development and the number of dwellings is effectively not up for discussion because that is all signed off and agreed. What we are looking at tonight is issues around layout design, because even some of those infrastructure issues that were raised, the statutory consultees, as you can see in the report and from the files, are all happy. In fact, the applicant has gone beyond what the statutory consultees required in some areas. So I absolutely understand local residents and their representatives' concerns, but those concerns relate, frankly, to the whole of Kent and to the whole of South East England in terms of development pressure and the impact upon our quality of life. So, zeroing in on this scheme and what are the challenges? I think the critical challenge with this site was stopping coalescence and stopping a spread into, if you like, the gap between Lewes and Cox Heath. And what this development has tried to do by the L-shaped landscape boundary along the northern and eastern edge, which is actually designated a local nature reserve, so therefore it has protection in planning law, is I think to soften and to create that landscape edge. So I think that is a really significant point in terms of urban design and respecting the countryside. So I think that is really good. And actually that enables a delivery of biodiversity net gain from, yes, it's an orchard site, but it's a miniature orchard site and it's intensively farmed. So what we're getting is a 387% biodiversity net gain, which is very significant. So I think, again, it's very difficult for us to challenge these things. I absolutely hear the point around water supply. We all know the problems that Cox Heath has because of the pumping station in Linton and the water coming from Hockers Lane and it being at the end of the network. However, there is primary legislation, national legislation, that water companies have to provide water. The fact that they don't is, is not something that we as a borough council and as a planning authority can address because it's national legislation. So I think that's quite significant. If I were to raise one potential issue, and it was raised actually by Cox Heath Parish Council, it relates to the renewables issue, because we know that we've got air source heat pumps to replace the heating, and that is agreed and understood. So we're not going to have gas boilers. However, we will still see quite high electricity use arising from the development. And what we have done in other cases, and I think we do have support through national policy and indeed our local plan review, is that we seek solar PV or similar renewables to address that electricity generation for the affordable element. And because we've got flat roof apartments in particular as part of this scheme, I think in design terms that could work. So I would appreciate it if either the case officer or Mr. Jarman could come back on that matter, because those within the affordable dwellings are the ones who need the most support with the costs of energy generation, and it does seem a way forward. That said, I think because of the policy issues and subject to the response on the renewables issue, I am happy to move that we do grant permission as per the papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nagy, do you want to speak now? Or? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, looking at the layout of the plan and what's been offered, I mean, I totally agree with Councillor Harwood. What's been put into this site has gone above and beyond most sites that we've seen in other parts of the county. I appreciate that there is that concern in anywhere where we're expanding the housing site and the local housing availability. But again, the concerns, we have to take those concerns in as a whole county, not just sorry. But yeah, sorry, yeah, I think we'll wrap that up there. Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Summerfield.
Yes, thank you. Couple of points for case officer, perhaps explain. There is no response from South East Water in the consultation list here. Were they requested to respond, and did they actually send anything in? because I'm also near the area and I suffered the same water supply issues that they are in Coxheath. So I'd like to know if and why they didn't respond.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just going to add in that Southern Water did respond. It's on page 61.
Southeast Water.
Southeast Water, okay. All right.
We'll check that. But as has been pointed out previously, first and foremost, Southeast Water or Southern Water are not statutory consultees. And the reason for that is because such matters, water supply, wastewater discharge are dealt with under separate legislation. So any developer has by law a right to connect to the public sewer under the 1994 Water Resources Act.
Yes, thank you. I was teaching grandma to suck eggs, but I was asking about water supply, not disposal. So my second question, we weren't given a layout plan in all the details here, which you've now put up. Could you point out where the access for Heath Road is and where the crossing would be? Because that information isn't in the pack that I've got. And the supplementary point to that is for the medical centre opposite, they were doing something about contributing to a crossing. So we've now either got 2 crossings or 2 people applying. If you could clarify that, please.
Yep. So the access to the site is here, and you'll see here there are some zigzag lines. Okay, so just down the bottom there are some zigzag lines. I don't know whether you can see my mouse. Hold on. Here. What I can try and do, hold on, if I come out of the full screen, I can zoom in like this. Sorry, it is a bit grainy. So this, where you can see the red by the entrance here is the site access, the main road vehicular access. You also have a separate pedestrian access here into the residential development, and then also here through the local nature reserve. And then here is the Puffin crossing shown. So just to give you, as the applicant set out, there was a meeting with KCC Highways as well as the applicant for Green Sands Place, and it was agreed that they will install a zebra crossing, and the applicant for this scheme will provide for an upgrade to the Puffin crossing. So that will come after this. And to secure this, there is a Grampian condition, so no occupation until this crossing is delivered.
Thank you. Could you just, one more point there, that you said the pedestrian access to the walkway, is that public? Because there is a footpath adjacent to the boundary.
Yes, it is public.
Okay, can you? Okay, cheers, Mike. Councillor Gooch.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say, I really felt the pain of the people who gave their views this evening. And it's very difficult to, when we listen to you, especially about the water, you've been without water. I know it's Kent-wide. I come from Barming. We had water fine. There's something, I wish there was more that we could do. We have to consider the planning regulations. And I'm learning as I go along. I'm sitting here thinking, we can't let this go through. But as Councillor Harwood and as Rob Jarman has pointed out, it's national legislation. We cannot have any view over it at all. And I wish I could say to you, it's okay, I've got a magic wand. Or it's okay, I know an MP worth their salt who's worthy of fighting that fight for you. I don't know of one. If you do, find them, because it is a national issue. We do need a decent government that can do something about it. However, at this moment in time, we are here to consider this planning application. And it makes me think of another planning application somewhere in Maidstone, which is a smashing little development, really well thought through, but it's in the wrong place. What's happening here is that actually I think it is in the right place. It looks in the wrong place because Cotsheath is heaving for the very reason that the parish councils have told us: the water, the infrastructure, the doctors. I just wish we had more power. Actually, I'd like to have, what I do like about this is the Grampian condition about the Puffin crossing before the development. What chance is there of Linton Crossroads being upgraded before this planning application? I get sick and tired of seeing more and more money put in when there is already money there. And I understand there is an oven-ready proposal for the upgrade of that site. So if somebody could help me with that, then I'd be most grateful. Apart from that, I have to say, otherwise, this is a good application. Thank you, but I would like info about Linton Flipping Crossroads.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gooch. I think the crossroads, I'll let the officers come in on this as well, because they're only contributing partly to it. We can't put a Grampian on it, because it actually has been agreed on the previous schemes as well. Obviously, what the developer has done is contributed quite a sum of money towards that to go with it. But I will let the officer come back in. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct, Councillor Wilby. It's quite complicated in that there's an argument to say that Maidstone have been a community infrastructure levy authority since October 2018. So any off-site contributions should be solely dealt with by way of SIL, the Community Infrastructure Levy. However, Kent County Council have increasingly raised concerns about money not going to infrastructure, in particular in this order, in particular education and to improving highway capacity of certain junctions in Maidstone Borough. So there is an argument to say that the developer shouldn't be paying any Section 106 monies. But we've run this past a lawyer, and the legal advice is that, yes, we can take both payments. And that's what the applicant is proposing. The applicant is proposing an education financial contribution by way of Section 106 agreement. And by way of Section 106, there is a contribution as well to Linton Crossroads. And as Sean has pointed out to me as well, and as you probably remember, Councillor Gooch, proportionate though it is, the development on the opposite side of the road, that also made a contribution. I'm drawing out this point because obviously the applicant also pays SIL. But what we need to do at some time in the future, when you're probably still here, is we shouldn't be asking developers to pay twice. So we shouldn't be asking for a particular developer to pay through the SIL monies, if that makes sense.
So, Councillor Thompson, you're not spoken yet. Thank you for your speech.
Points noted with great interest. I learned elsewhere from discussion of SPDs that there is a new process called monitor and manage. relating to impacts on highways and transport. I'm attending on page 60, bullet point 3, subsection 8, concern that trip generation data was taken during COVID is not a true reflection of road conditions. And then further on page 71, 6.59, the traffic impacts, and the point made by one of the parish councils about the undesirability of Greensands Place and this site being developed at the same time. I'm looking under that monitor and manage heading whether there is any scope in this committee's remit to be able to point relevant authorities towards bringing these things together in some meaningful fashion. I may be clutching at straws, but I'm doing my best.
Thank you. There's no policy requirement for such. You know, you might see master planning come up in policies, but it's not in our policies. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not enforceable, unfortunately.
Yes, I would, just before I bring you back in, I just was going to raise the question. We've stated that this is a local nature reserve. I'm aware that there's a process to get local nature reserve status. Is that being carried out by the applicant or by the borough on handover? And also the management concerns. If this has been done by a management company, probably most of us here have had complaints from as councillors about management company actually managing nature reserves. Not to be done here, but maybe it's delegated to the officers about the actual Coxey's parish, either having a couple of members on that board to manage the nature reserve underneath the management company, so they have input into it to actually safeguard it for the people of Coxey.
So I think it's not that clear on the head of term. We could make it clearer that it's for the applicant to drive forward. Would you be happy with that, Rob?
I'd prefer it if I was given delegated powers so that Coxey's Parish Council, if they wish, have a stake in the LEMP.
Yeah, and possibly maybe outreach to maybe even Luce that's just on the borders.
Sure.
Okay.
And sorry, whilst I've got the microphone, in answer to Councillor Harwood's point about solar PV panels on the affordable homes, the policy delegated powers to negotiate with the applicant to try and execute what Councillor Harwood proposed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jarman. And then the only other thing I was going to mention, again, because it's conditions, and I'm not aware that we sometimes fall foul of these, about the 10-year landscape management plan. On scheme for this size, normally we actually put something a bit longer in.
Yeah.
Again, I'm happy to leave it to yourself to negotiate a longer term, but something in the range of like 25 years would be what personally I'd be seeking if the proposer is willing to take that as an amendment. Councillor Harwood.
Yeah, if I may come in, quite a few points have been raised, and I'll do them in kind of reverse order then. I think in terms of the renewable generation, the micro generation, I think the building within this development is the affordable apartment block, which seems to lend itself, and that is the block that would have things like a communal lobby and so on, where a solar PV panel would be very effective. So if you are negotiating, I think, as I say, this is air source heat pumps throughout, and that is commendable. and fits in with building regs. But I do think there is an opportunity with that flat roof apartment block to do something with solar PV. Coming back to the local nature reserve and its management, this applicant has signed quite an innovative legal agreement. Another one of his sites at Roundwell Park in Bearsted, and in that one there's a partnership with a nearby existing local nature reserve, the River Len LNR, to provide support and advice. And here you've got Hale Park, you've got other reserves in the local area. So I think that delegated powers issue for the officers to enable them to discuss with people like yourselves and would be really helpful in framing it. And the chairman is right that management plans is just about the review period, really. And what you don't want to do is lots of chopping and changing. So kind of 20-year, 25-year management plans, they're less trouble because you actually see that things are working. So, so I'll be very, I think that's nice and it can be discussed with the applicant. Coming back to some of the other points that were raised around the checkered history of water supply in Coxheath. I mean, as has been mentioned, Section 41 of the Water Industry Act 1991, it does not give any ability for us as a planning authority to challenge it. It is just the law that water needs to be provided, and we enable connection to a water supply. We cannot get into the other details. And then on another point that was raised by Councillor Gooch, which I think was a good point around Linton Crossroads, particularly with access to and from Cornwallis over the road, because it's quite a problematic crossroads, particularly for pedestrians. I will remind colleagues that there was a community infrastructure, strategic community infrastructure bid, and it came to the cabinet in this council, but of course it was MBC that did not choose to provide the funding being sought by the Highway Authority. So that it is history. It was another administration, but it occurred, and I remember that the borough councillor for Bolton Monchelsea at the time was very unhappy at that decision. But there is another seal round ongoing, and we will have to wait and see what bids come in from the Highway Authority. But again, that's not the applicant's fault in this case. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Somerville.
Yes, thank you. Just clarification again, without having the layout in the plans. One of the reasons for referral is a small portion of the site to the north sits within countryside, so it's not compliant with the development plan. Could you perhaps indicate where that is and what is being constructed in there?
Yeah, I'll just pull that up now. So it's roughly from about here where that top road is, running from the top road running from east to west. And what it includes is the greenway, which will be a surfaced area, as well as the very edge of this top road, and a sewage pumping house. So this would be, my understanding is that this would be underground. So there's no actual built form that sits above ground level.
Thank you. That's clarification I was looking for.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Just want to have a bit of clarification, just because the applicant mentioned it, just to ensure that that 30-mile-an-hour extension is captured within the plans actually specified in the conditions. Yeah.
Yep, I could capture that within the conditions actually, if that would be better.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, unless anybody else wants to come in. Okay, well, in that case, I've got to propose a seconder.
Just to say, Chair, no disclosures and no disclosures of lobbying.
I was also going to say probably because you've come halfway through this item, you won't be able to vote on this item. Okay. 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 So I move to the vote. All in favour? With the conditions and the amendments that we've just gone through and the delegation powers to the officers. Yeah, that is unanimous apart from Councillor Cleater. Okay, unanimous. So that is approved. Thank you, councillors. Right. Okay. Moving on then. Item 19. Land on site former 51 London Road, Maidstone, Kent. I call upon the officer to introduce.
Thank you. So the application tonight is at 51 London Road, which is just south of Bowermount Road, and seeks the erection of a 4-storey apartment building containing 14 two-bedroom dwellings and includes 4 affordable units. So the application follows a number of similar applications on site, the most recent of which was taken to committee in February 2022. And was refused on the basis of visual and amenity harm, specifically to number 49 London Road, which is immediately south of the application site. So this was appealed and the decision issued in January 2024, so a reasonably recent decision, but prior to the current local plan and the MPPF. The appeal was dismissed, but the reason for refusal relating to visual harm was discounted, so only the impact on neighbouring amenity was upheld. As such, aside from alterations to address the reasons for refusal, on the face of it, it appears quite similar. We've got the removal of some of the bulk at the 4th floor. Number of windows has been reduced. The roof terraces that were facing number 49 have been removed, and the windows have been angled here, so no longer facing directly onto number 49. So a significant change over the previous application. This application initially came in with on-site parking provision. Following comments from KCC Highways, who objected to the application on the basis of the proximity to the pedestrian crossing here, the parking provision has been removed. So this is now a car-free development. KCC Highways did not object to the previous applications on the basis of the office building here from 2009, which was demolished. So they've since revised their position and are not giving any weight to the office building. So to address this, and with Highways consultancy support, the applicant has adopted this car-free scheme. So Highways have accepted this on the basis that it's a broadly sustainable location, but it does not comply with their own parking standards. So the applicant has not submitted a parking stress survey in support of the application. Much of the surrounding on-street parking provision within neighbouring roads is permitted. The council's parking servicer has confirmed that future occupants will not be eligible for parking permits, so they won't be able to access this provision. The only on-street parking provision that is not restricted is a small section of Bowermount Road, which is already stressed. So there's this small section here. The remaining on-street parking provision is time restricted, so it would not be practical to store a vehicle during weekdays. So that's along Whitchurch Close and Kingstown Close. So moving on to neighbouring amenity, The officer report details the alterations made to address the reason for refusal, the resiting of the building, the significant reduction of fenestration to number 49, which is pictured here. So as you can see, number 49 is slightly lower. The applicant has submitted a daylight assessment. The kitchen window of number 49, this is a habitable room due to its size. The findings of the daylight survey are detailed in the officer report. The inspector decision doesn't refer to a loss of light to number 49, but specifically refers to the loss of privacy and the loss of outlook. So moving on to biodiversity on site, no objections have been received in terms of submitted preliminary ecological assessment, which does note that there is suitable habitats for bats and breeding birds. Surveys for bats and breeding birds haven't been submitted. A reptile one has been. This has been accepted by ecological consultees, and they've suggested conditions should we be minded to approve. The site is completely overgrown and has remained undisturbed following the demolition of the office building. So the BNG metric shows that all habitats are to be lost, and no details of any on-site habitat retention, enhancement, or creation have been provided. And due to the proposed layout and current habitat and the current state of the site, it is highly unlikely that the applicant can achieve an on-site 20% BNG. So the applicant will be relying on off-site credits, which does not follow the mitigation hierarchy. Though ecological consultees have indicated that the applicant will be able to secure off-site gains, but we don't have the details of what that's going to be, only that they could get them. So we have a site with a recent appeal decision. However, there have been significant policy changes since then, such as the local plan review and the introduction of BNG. Whilst there are significant disbenefits with this scheme, in particular the non-compliance with council's BNG policy, the likely loss of more trees, the non-compliance with recent KCC parking standards, and the non-compliance with outdoor private amenity standards. However, in light of the 5-year housing supply shortage, we've given very high weight to delivery of more small flats in what is regarded as a very sustainable location. So on balance, we're recommending approval, subject to the conditions and heads of terms detailed.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Fletcher. Moving on then, we'll bring the speakers in. Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you. Firstly, just to say I am keen to see affordable flats here. It is a good sustainable site. However, this application, obviously refused a couple of years ago, is only marginally better than the last one, and I say marginally with a small, very small m. It was refused last time on the basis that it overlooks number 49. The report says it's moved back a couple of metres to 8.5 metres away. The report in 2022 stated it was 8.5 metres away at that point. So I'm not, there's some clarification needed there. Has it moved back or not? I don't know. Either way, there are still 17 windows overlooking number 49, plus a number of balconies. So if the committee is minded to approve this, can you please condition some screening down that edge with planting and plus a long maintenance period, please. In addition, the proposal is for a modern square grey block set in the middle of a long line of a dozen Victorian buildings stretching from Queen's Road to Terrace Road. 7 of those buildings are listed. It is a magnificent stretch of road that's going to have a great big block in the middle of it. The inspector might have not have been bothered about the street scene, but we've got a new LPR and 7.5 needs to be, point in your report needs to be given some more thought. Is it more relevant now than it was? Final couple of points. Zero parking is brave. I'll leave that there. Not that I want to encourage car use, but it's a brave move. There isn't much renewable energy. The site could do far, far better. And then finally, I'm sure Tony will agree that the site is wonderfully rewilded, and it will be a real shame to lose the nature reserve that's grown up. I note that BNG will be off-site, but let's try and keep it as close to the site as we can in terms of that funding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Mr. Bevan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The effect this application will have on 49 London Road, a Victorian two-storey house, is appalling. 49 is built close to its northwest boundary, and 51 was built close to its northwest boundary. It's now demolished, resulting in a huge window-to-window distance. The current application is for a four-storey apartment building with only 8.7 metres window-to-window distance to number 49 as marked on the current site roof plan. The previous application was refused by the Planning Committee, the subsequent appeal dismissed by the Planning Inspectorate, stating the proposed development would have a significant effect on the living conditions of occupiers of number 49. It would therefore conflict with Local Plan 2, Policy DM1. It would also conflict with Framework Paragraph 135F. The previous application was refused by the Planning Committee in the belief the separation distance was approximately 8.5 metres, stated on the previous application committee report. See paragraph 7.14. The committee report for this current application states the separation distance is 8.8 metres. See paragraph 7.13, which is hardly any increase. As no significant changes have been made regarding the effect of number 49, and the ends of the walk-on balconies look straight into the rooms and gardens of 49, this latest application should be refused. Regarding it being a car-free site, I actually live in Whitchurch Close, and we have enough trouble at the moment with people dumping their cars there weekends, because the only parking that's prohibited is from 11 to 11:30 on weekdays. So what happens? People park their cars there on a Friday and they disappear on Sunday evening. They don't live in the close. So with the car-free site, this is going to be even worse. So people living in Whitchurch Close will only be able to access their own drives. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a bit of a first. We have the Mr. White, the applicant, virtually. Oh, sorry. Someone please turn the mic off. Okay, Mr. White, are you with us?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, up again. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application on behalf of the applicant. We're pleased that officers are supportive of the proposal for the reasons justified in the comprehensive report before you this evening. The site has an extensive planning history, and the current application has responded to the points raised in the inspector's recent appeal decision on the previous application on the site. The appeal was dismissed for the sole reason of the impact on the living conditions of the neighbouring property at 49 London Road. The appeal decision has served to clarify the planning position and confirmed areas which were found to be acceptable by the inspector, including the modern design and the impact of the scale and siting of the building on the character and appearance of London Road. The current proposal has been revised to increase the separation distance between the apartment building and number 49, positioning the building further away from the site boundary. The scale of the building has also been reduced by removing the central portion of the upper floor to ensure adequate levels of natural light to number 49 London Road, which has been technically confirmed by a daylight and sunlight assessment. The number, size and position of the windows on the building elevation flanking number 49 have been reduced and angled such that the field of view excludes number 49 and the windows serving the central staircase will be obscure glazed. The development is car-free, and this approach was agreed with KCC Highways due to the application site's highly sustainable location close to the town centre and the 3 train stations. The full biodiversity net gain will be delivered off-site and will be secured through the purchasing of credits in a suitable mitigation scheme, which KCC Ecology has found to be acceptable. The existing on-site trees will be retained and protected as far as possible, and new landscaping will be introduced as part of the proposals. The site's location close to the town centre and several parks and green spaces provides amenity opportunities for future residents beyond the site itself. The approval of this application would deliver new housing, including affordable housing, in this highly sustainable location in close proximity to the town centre, contributing to the borough's housing supply, which the council has recently confirmed as being below the required 5-year figure, and making a highly effective use of the land on this brownfield site. As emphasised, the appeal inspector's judgment confirmed the scheme's acceptability with regard to the relevant planning and technical matters, and the only outstanding matter has now been resolved by this application. As such, I encourage you to support your office's recommendation for the approval of this development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Okay, and Mr. Jarman just wants to come in before we start our discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As William said, this is an extremely balanced case. Yes, as all councillors know, Maidstone has not got a 5-year land supply. Balanced against the scheme is obviously a lot has been made of the appeal, but the appeal was of its time. It was before the local plan review. It was before biodiversity net gain legislation. So 2 points, and they actually do overlap. So whatever people's personal feelings are about cars, Kent County Council brought out new standards, which unsurprisingly covers all of Kent. And this is well below the standard set out. And there isn't the, it's okay if it's a sustainable location in the standards. So, you know, as we always say, this is a regulatory committee and standards are important. If you deviate from standards, then there's got to be a good reason. And as the applicant's agent said, it's in, we can argue about what close proximity means, but it's not in the town centre. So there's a higher parking requirement. And as I said, 0 parking is proposed. Secondly, balanced against this is that we consider, and this, certainly in my experience, this will be the first time, whereby 0 on-site BNG is being provided. There is a hierarchy whereby, and obviously at the top of the pyramid is you provide BNG on site. And again, you know, certainly as officers, we've taken a very consistent approach to this. Where it is very difficult, we look in very simple terms for a mix and match. We look to maximize the amount of BNG on site. And if there is a residual, which sometimes there is, then it goes off site. But then we, you know, obviously we need information as to where off site. Obviously we favour sites closest to the application site. So I'll shut up now, but I think this is a very careful balancing exercise. And in my experience, it would be the first time where no BNG would be provided on site. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jarman. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chairman. As we point, I'm getting a real sense of deja vu. I framed the refusal 2 years ago or whatever. So, and it looks like the same application to me. And we've actually got changes in the National Planning Policy Framework and changes within that, within our local plan which actually could drive better design and a better scheme. So I frankly do not think that we can determine this application tonight. There are too many gaps. I mean, for example, it is ridiculous on a site which is essentially a wood to say that we can only deliver 0% biodiversity net gain. Clearly, we need a proper scheme identifying which elements of the site are being retained in terms of the landscaping, which elements can be enhanced, which kind of structural niches can be put in for the bats and so on. In fact, I've never seen before, I think it's at condition 9, there's in brackets where possible for the enhancements, whereas I'm sure it doesn't usually say where. I mean, we demand it. It's supported by national and local planning guidance, so we don't have to do it where possible. We can tell the applicant to do it. Also, in terms of it within that hierarchy for B&G, we need to look at where that enhancement is going to go, and we don't want to kind of put it out of county or out to, we cannot have this golf movement. There is actually a really nice nature reserve within 5 minutes walk of here. Just go across the road and down Butland Hill, and you've got a site there with a lot of rare wildlife where there's a management plan with enhancements in the pipeline, and Maidstone Council own it. So that would look like an area where we could get additional enhancement points. But I don't think we can determine that here in committee. That needs to be worked up so that we're on the right side of the planning guidance that we need to follow, so that we can make an informed decision. And it actually speaks to the points raised by the ward councillor in relation to the screening and the neighbour, actually, because as has been pointed out, we've got lovely Victorian villas, and then we will have this. So we need to hide it, basically, and therefore we need to retain as many of the trees as we possibly can and to screen what's left. And that's why that point around B&G and on-site landscaping needs to be worked up, and we need a deferral in order to do that. On the other point that Mr. Jarman made, I understand the point you make around the parking standards that KCC has adopted. The problem is there is a get-out clause at the end of KCC's parking standards, which states that local conditions can be looked at and a determination is made on its merits by the local situation. And we know that we do have residential accommodation very near to here that does not have parking provision, and therefore the applicants will just point to that and say that we've got nearby similar flats which don't have that. So I don't pin much hope on that. I particularly with the 5-year land supply issue, but I do think we can better screen and get a better scheme from that perspective. So I'm prepared to move deferral for the grounds I talked about, to look at in detail at the landscape and B&G issue to make sure we're on the right side of this. But where I do think parking standards do come in is on deliveries, because if we're going to have delivery lorries parking all the time on London Road, which is problematic enough coming up to the crossroads with Summerfield and Butland Hill, it's going to be a disaster. So how on earth are we going to tackle the modern world of deliveries? And if people have not got cars, they're going to need deliveries even more than other residents would. So I think that issue needs to be properly bottomed out. And I'm very surprised that the Highway Authority didn't flag this issue, because it's an A road. However, I mean, we know it's pretty par for the course. So can that issue be looked at as well, about how are deliveries safely managed for a large residential block? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howard. I'm quite happy to second the deferral. I just probably want to add a few other points to it. Mr. Jarman's just added that probably we should look at carrying a parking stress survey for the local area to see what the parking's already like. I don't know if you picked up in the report. Apparently, not one reptile was found on this site, which I find very hard to believe. And also, there's no. I'd also point out that there's no management for the bat roosts. It identifies 6 roosts in this area, and there's no mention about how that's being managed, or what type of bats are actually even in those roosts. So I think, so I'm just highlighting that's what we want them to go back and have a look at, and also to identify if they can't get the B&G on site, where is it going? Because I think that's the key point, and the scoring to go with it, because it's all right saying we're losing it all, but what are we losing and what do we need to replicate somewhere else? No, I know. But it's. Okay, so Councillor Summers, go on.
Thank you. Could you just clarify the 705, the new LPR policy SP15 is stated there. Was this the same wording before the new local plan, or is there a change? Was there a change in that? That's a point raised by Councillor Jeffrey as well.
William, can you go back on that one?
The wording's broadly the same for, I think it was the DM, I can't remember the DM, but the character and design policies as they relate to here, broadly the same.
Okay, everyone else, that's that. Okay, go on, Faye. The Gooch, do you want to say again with the microphone?
Got it this time, I think. Is it on? Yeah. Refuse lorries, turning areas. There might need to be, perhaps that could be combined with delivery lorries. Will that be? Yeah, sorry to be picky, but.
No, as we know, it's in the detail. Okay. Any other items? Councillor Thompson?
To double down on the point made previously from 705 onwards, is it possible to further interrogate the potential to make this more sympathetic in terms of its heritage placement? I noticed these very carefully worded statements referring to the views of the inspectorate. It seems to me that there is still potential to ask for something that is more sympathetic to the heritage setting of this site.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So that's combined with the planting scheme that possibly could screen this block. Yeah, okay. Councillor Perry, last one.
I'll be very quick. I do support what Councillor Harwood originally said, but I looked at this whole issue of the car-free zone, and it seemed to me I just couldn't see how it would work because of the deliveries and the various other things. And it's what my old civil service colleagues would call a very courageous decision if you made it, because I just don't think it would work actually. And so I do support deferral. Thank you.
I think where schemes like this have worked before is where they have a car share scheme where you actually then book the car out from the site. So I know that that's where they've done it in central London. That's the way they've got around it. So you actually have a use of a vehicle, but that's just something that the developer can possibly have a look at. Okay, so we're going to move to. I said the last one, Mike. So go.
I was just wondering, this B&G off-site, can't see it mentioned in any of the conditions. So doesn't have to be conditioned?
No, so that's what we asked them to look at about where the B&G goes, for example. So we need to actually identify the location of it. And as you know, the B&Gs are worked out by credits, and you know how many credits actually this generates, etc., all that kind of stuff. So, Councillor Harwood, and then we are going to get to the vote.
No, I think we need to get this deferral absolutely right. We need to maximise the B&G credits delivered on the site, So we need to go down that, you know, it's a criteria driven and then we're looking off site, but they've got to get up to the 20% somehow. So it may not all be on site, but some of it will be. So we've really got to toughen up on the landscaping and what's maintained and what's improved. And we've really got to toughen up on integral niches and so on.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we're voting on deferral. All in favour? Unanimous. Okay, that is deferred. Okay. Moving on then. Item 15, 3 Manor Close, Bearsted, Kent. I'll move to the officer to introduce.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. This application proposes construction of a 3-bedroom bungalow with associated parking. On your screen is the area view of the application site, showing that it's in a backland location behind number 3 Manor Close. This current image is a view of the application site looking towards number 24 Manor Rise. This image is the view of the application site looking north. The area, the sitting area, would be the residential garden for the proposed new dwelling. The trees at the rear part of the site would also be retained as part of the development. This current plan is the proposed site plan and ground floor plan. It shows the footprint of the building to the top part of the plan, and the bottom part shows the floor area that the building would cover. So this current plan shows the proposed elevation of the building. The height of the building is about 4.5 meters above ground level. So the character of the area, as seen in the original photograph shown, includes backland development. The current application would follow that pattern of development. The scale, design, form, and of the dwelling is in keeping with the established character of the area. The proposer would also maintain acceptable amenity with neighbors, neighboring particularly number 5 across the sites from this location. The gap to the boundary is about 3.5 meters. The scheme provides a family dwelling of good standard with good levels of amenity that meets national space standards. The access and parking provision are also considered as acceptable. We've had previous appeal decisions where inspectors have considered that a single dwelling in a backland location is normally acceptable in terms of impact on neighboring amenities. The application is also described as self-built, and so it's exempt from BNG legislation. The proposal is in accordance with relevant adopted plan policies. Available information on the Council's housing land supply position lends further weight to a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Councillor Springett.
Good evening, members. This proposal represents one of the worst cases of garden grabbing I have seen and will harm the character and appearance of the area and the amenity, privacy and quality of life of several neighbours. This once lovely, well-spaced close of bungalows is becoming a shadow of what it was. Bungalows have been enlarged beyond recognition, and now we are overseeing the destruction of the gardens and green spaces between them. The aerial picture shows the large gardens, which give space for people and nature. Para 618 refers to the spacious character and expansive rear gardens in this location. But if we allow this application, how do we stop all the others from doing the same? Policy LPR SP2 states that development should contribute positively to the locality's distinctive character. This proposal certainly does not do that. Paragraph 606.07 refers to evidence of need for self-build plots, yet the applicant lives in 3 Manor Close. So where is the evidence of his need in this particular case? The access is poor and larger vehicles and removal vans will not easily navigate the narrow driveway. Even cars will find it narrow. Vehicles using the drive will cause noise, vibration and disturbance to all future occupiers of number 3 and potentially numbers 4 and 4A forever. Putting bat boxes up, as mentioned in para 6.55, is pointless, as there's not sufficient space left for bats to circle and feed, and removing all the green spaces between dwellings takes away valuable habitat from bats, birds and hedgehogs, to name a few. On-street parking is already limited. This makes it worse. To solve one privacy issue, they propose to plant non-native, fast-growing Italian trees. For goodness sakes. Just because we haven't got a 5-year land supply doesn't mean we should approve every garden grab or poor design with poor access. It doesn't mean we should ignore the amenity and privacy of neighbours. Our land supply was jeopardised by this committee removing 30 or so units from the sorting office site, reducing the numbers at Springfield to make it better for their future occupants. But if you approve this, you will create a poor environment for these residents. We absolutely should not let the tilted balance cloud good decision making, proper consideration of character of an area, and proper respect for the amenity and privacy of existing residents. You are being asked to approve this out of fear. Fear of an appeal, really? We have good policies to protect the privacy and amenity of neighbours in a newly updated local plan. Uphold them. Not all inspectors are hell-bent on approving everything. Please refuse this application as it is contrary to policy LPR HOU 4, parts 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6, by causing significant harm to the character and appearance of the area, harm to the privacy and amenity of several adjoining properties, unacceptable impact from noise, vibration and disturbance from vehicles accessing the property, and loss of valuable green space and biodiversity. Thank you, members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Jenkins.
Good evening. I'm Paul Jenkins. I live at Manor Rise, 24 Manor Rise, Bearsted. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and other objectors who live locally. First of all, I'd like to say that this piece of land was originally tennis courts and was bought by my now deceased neighbour, Derek, who lived next door at number 23 Manor Rise, to stop anybody building building a house on the land behind his house. He turned it into a beautiful garden and in doing so made it a wildlife haven. He did joke that one day he would be too old to manage it, all of it at the same time, and I said to him that I would readily purchase a chunk of it that was behind my garden to enhance my garden and to stop any building. Now his daughter and son-in-law, who live behind his house, are doing exactly the opposite and turning this lovely green space into a densely packed concrete and tarmac eyesore. I did wonder over the last year why some larger trees were being removed by tree surgeons. At the time I thought naively that they must be diseased or dying, but now I understand why. They were being removed discreetly before planning was applied for and before a visit of a planning officer. The development would cause loss of privacy to myself, looking into my second floor, bedrooms and other neighbours. The property will be situated in the middle of 8 other properties and will affect their privacy and the view of even more people. Many of the owners of the adjoining properties are retired, as I am, but many are more elderly than myself, and I know that it is already affecting some people's mental health with worry and stress of what may come. I'm aware that my last point I'm going to make has nothing actually to do with the planning committee, but I have had a builder's yard in the front and back garden of the other house on the other side of me at 25 Manor Rise for 3 years. And it's continuing with no sign of when it will be cleared. My neighbours and myself having to endure rats, noise, dust and general rubbish and mess. And if this development is allowed to go ahead, I will have noise, dust and building nuisance on 3 sides of my property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Can you just send them? Yeah, thank you. Okay, we now have Mr. Fowler for the applicant.
My name is Paul Fowler and I am the applicant's agent. The application before you follows a pre-application submission where the principle of development was considered acceptable. The proposal is to be built and lived in by the owners of 3 Manor Close as a self-built plot. The site is sustainable and makes good use of an unusually large residential garden. It will provide an additional much-needed dwelling in an urban location where principle of development is generally supported. The principle of dwellings behind the frontage properties is well established by a number of nearby properties at 27 Manor Rise, 4, 5 and 6 Manor Court and 4A Manor Close. The most recent example of this type of development is the new dwelling at 4A Manor Close. This application before you is identical in principle and very similar in detail. The access and ground coverage proportion of this proposal is exactly the same as 4A. In this respect, the proposal reflects the character of the location and the pattern of the current development at a density that is compatible. The L-shaped nature of the design ensures no large expanses of roof, and the pitches have been arranged to ensure a low-lying bungalow at no more than 4.5 metres high, which is cut into the current ground line by an average depth of 600 millimetres. The proposal is subservient in height to all of the surrounding dwellings. There is no scope for first floor accommodation. The ground floor nature of all windows and doors ensures no overlooking of the boundary fences and no loss of privacy to any adjoining owners. Acceptable separation distances are provided from all adjoining properties, so limiting any loss of amenity. Access and parking have raised no objections from KCC, and a single additional dwelling will have limited impact on the local road network. Parking provision meets the required standard. On this basis, we would ask that you accept your officer's recommendation and approve the scheme. Could I just make officers and members aware that condition 13 refers to use as a holiday let, which is not the case here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fowler. That does bring me just to reiterate, there is an urgent update. That covers condition 13. So just to make sure that everyone's actually aware of that. Okay, and then I shall go to the ward member, Councillor Spooner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it might be useful if I just explain a little bit of the background to this site, and if I can draw members' attention to the location plan, which you've all had copies of. And I just want to explain the street numbering, because I think that is vital to understanding the background and the planning history of this development. The application site, outlined in red, is to the rear of number 3, Manor Close. Manor Close is the road going from east to west. Immediately to the east or to the right is number 4, Manor Close. Immediately behind 4 Manor Close is number 4A Manor Close, which has its access down the access road, which goes down the eastern side, number 4. To the north of 4A Manor Close, there is number 23, Manor Rise. And Manor Rise is the road which you can see the top right-hand corner going from southwest to northeast. That is Manor Rise. The objector who has just been speaking, I think he was from 24, Manor Rise. And the application site, I'm led to believe, although it's not a planning consideration, is owned by the resident of number 23, Manor Rise. So there's a bit of incest going on, if you pardon the expression. There's a lot of negotiations going on between people. I was horrified when I saw the recommendation to approve this application. I agree entirely with what my fellow board member, Val Spring, said. I support the local residents. This is a truly horrendous scheme. It is blatant garden grabbing. I have always wondered about the planning history of 4A, how it got permitted, because all along Manor Close, it is frontage development. I've had several people over the years say, how did that get permitted, Dennis? I said, I don't know, I'll look it up one day. Well, I never got round to it, too many other things to do, but I did in the context of this application. I was absolutely staggered to see that in 2016 it was given a delegated permission. At that time, I wasn't a borough councillor, I wasn't a parish councillor, I knew nothing about it. But to my way of thinking, it is blatant backland tandem development, totally out of character with the surrounding area. But in planning, we say there's no such thing as a planning precedent. You know, every case on its merits, and that's absolutely true. I prefer to say that if you make a bad development, it can compromise other bits of land for a similar development. And that is exactly what has happened here. We now have what I will call a Me Too application come forward on the adjoining site. And as the agent said, you know, it's a replication of what's already been done. The agents have, or the applicants have thought, well, they've done it next door, we do the same. And that's what happened. But I think this is even worse than the one that's already been permitted, because that access road is going to go closely by number 3 and number 4. It's going to severely impact on both of them. It's going to impact upon 4A, and it will also impact upon number 4, Manor Court. Manor Court is to the west of the application site. It's the big detached houses. There's 6 of them. On the right hand side, there's 1 and 3 at the front. Number 4 is the house that backs onto where the parking and turning area will be for the application site. I don't think we should be allowing this at all. I think we should be refusing it. It is seriously detrimental to the amenities of the local residents, and it is perpetuating and making worse a bad decision that was made by the Borough Council back in 2016. Decision's been made. The people who are involved with it have moved on. You know, we are where we are. There's nothing we can do about it. But I would move that we refuse this application, primarily on the grounds of the means of access and traffic movements to the new dwelling, the impact that will have upon the surrounding houses, and the noise and disturbance that will create. Yeah, I think that's all I said. I could work up, as the date goes on, I'll work up some reasons for refusal, but I would like to see this application refused, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spooner. Do you have a seconder for that, for the refusal? Refusal? Not at the moment. Okay, Councillor Nagy, do you wish to speak now?
Yeah, so I'll try and be a bit more coherent this time. Yes, looking at this, I know based on what we've looked into the site before, the site next door was actually done quite a long time ago during a period where land grab was quite rampant. I believe that there's actually been a lot of legislation and development in place to try and prevent these sort of things from happening. Because looking at the aerial photograph now, it's quite densely populated, quite densely built upon, and literally we are just looking at the heart of this area, this small patch of greenland, and I feel that although a small development next door has been done, we're really pushing to just clear nearly all the greenland that's in this particular area. And I don't think putting something of this degree into that space will benefit the area, benefit the residents, and also really be of benefit for anyone living there, especially with that tiny access. It just seems to be like it's just being squeezed into that last part of the garden space that's available, and I don't think we should really be pushing to just clear out every bit of garden space that's available. So I agree with my fellow councillor. I think this is too much garden space to be losing in such a densely populated area already.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nagy. Councillor Summerkill.
I think one of the speakers mentioned it being subservient in height to the local properties. I'd just like some clarification on what height the local properties are. I'm having tried to follow Councillor Spooner's detailed numbering. I'm still puzzled in 103 with its unfortunate use of the wrong word in the first line. It mentions to the north and the east number 27 and number 4A Manor Rise. I'm puzzled when trying to place those on this plan. Where is 27 Manor Rise and where is 4A Manor Rise, or is that Manor Close? Which I think 4A Manor Close is the property to the southeast of this plot. I've no idea where 27 is, and are they bungalows or two-storey houses?
Let the officer come back.
Thank you for the question. So number 27 Manor Rise, it's behind the. Sorry, it's I'm
Francis,
just pointing to it. It's this building over here.
Yeah.
Yes, and then you have Manor Court.
Francis, can you show us actually on the screen itself?
Yes. So sorry, that is the building over here. And so majority of the buildings or the frontage buildings are about 6 meters above ground level. And then you have two-story buildings on this section of the neighboring site. So this building, number 24, is a two-story building. The rear windows of this building overlooks the application site. So the proposal is to plant some trees to kind of obscure that views from that window. So 4A is this property. This is number 4. This is the number 4A. Yes.
That's Manor Close, is it? Yeah. Clearer, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jarman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I do think that the impact on residential amenity is a potentially strong reason for refusal. It's one we've used many a time with backland tandem development. Obviously, as Councillor Spooner pointed out, we've got no control over what type of cars the owners would have. So they could be diesel cars or petrol. They make noise, obviously, in the night. you use your headlights, that's going to cause disturbance to the next door neighbours. Plus, obviously, properties change hands as well. So it would be neighbours plural, including the site next door. I would caution against refusing it on out of character and appearance. Obviously, the agent is going to say, A, it's invisible, you can't see it from a public highway. I don't know if that's 100% true or not. If you can see it, the agent is going to say you see it against a backdrop of other houses. So personally, I would refuse it on solely impact on residential amenities.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone positively speaking about it, so what I'm going to propose is take a quick break of 10-15 minutes to give Councillor Spooner some time to talk to the officer to clarify the conditions which we're going to go for refusal on. Okay, unless anyone's mindful to speak for it. No? Okay, so if I say we reconvene at 15:15. Okay. Okay, councillors, can you take your seats, please? Okay, councillors, welcome back. Okay, so we've had a bit of a consultation and we have some reasons for refusal, which Mr. Jarman will read that now.
Thank you, Chairman. So the sole reason for refusal would be, I quote, noise and disturbance associated with traffic flows in very close proximity to neighbouring properties would have a significant detrimental impact on residential amenities enjoyed by numbers 3, 4 and 4A Manor Close and number 4 Manor Court, contrary to policies LPR HOU2, HOU4 and SP15.
Okay. So if no one wants any further discussion on it, I'm going to move straight to the vote for refusal. Those all in favour of refusal? Unanimous? And that is refused. Thank you, councillors. So Rob, can I just grab the word? Okay, moving on to the next item. Item 17, Crabtree House, Craddock's Lane, Staplehurst. Move to the officer to introduce, please.
Thank you. So the application site is in the countryside along Craddock's Lane in Staplehurst and seeks the demolition of 2 outbuildings and the erection of a 4-bed detached dwelling and carport. It also seeks alterations to the existing dwelling on site. So the application follows a recent refusal which sought 3 dwellings on site. This was dismissed, but significantly, despite the lack of footpaths and lighting to access Staplehurst, the inspector discounted the reason for refusal relating to the sustainability of the location. So only upheld the reasons for refusal relating to visual harm. The inspector also noted that the removal of the breaker's yard, where the proposed dwelling in this case would be located, would be a positive. So as such, we now have a single 2-storey chalet-style dwelling with rooms contained within the roof space. As detailed within the officer report, it's not assessed that the development results in significant harm to the countryside. The works to the existing dwelling do not interfere with the OST. No objections have been received from conservation officers, and no trees are to be removed from the application site. So we have the dwelling here, the proposed carport. Here's the access to the site with the existing dwelling, the OST. We have a picture of the breaker's yard to the south. This is one of the buildings to be removed. Picture of the breaker's yard, and this is viewing north, and in the background, maybe you can see it, the other building to be removed. So the application has gone from 3 dwellings to a single dwelling on a brownfield site. No harm has been assessed, and we're recommending for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Will. Okay. We have a statement from Staplehurst Parish. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a representation from Staplehurst Parish Council that's unable to be represented this evening. They did call the application in. Notwithstanding the emotive comments by the development consultant directed at Staplehurst Parish Council and constant referral to an application on another site 10 years previously, councillors have, as always, with no personal bias, simply consulted the MPPF, local plan and our neighbourhood planning conditions when considering any development. It's noted that the latest application is different to the original one, 3 additional dwellings now being reduced to a single dwelling, but as it affects a building of local historic interest, we still have concerns. There have also been updates since our comments were submitted. Part of the application shows the trees and hedges between the application site and the neighbouring listed building, and as such, if the hedges were to be cut back in the future, the listed building would be directly impacted, and we would like to safeguard its setting as set out in the local plan. Maybe Maidstone Borough Council officers could ensure the shielding between sites remain, especially as the neighbour comments ask for this. We remain concerned about the design, scale and form of the second dwelling proposed for the site, considering it will adversely change or affect the character and appearance of the surrounding area heritage assets. We acknowledge and are pleased to see the provision of insulation and solar power, as well as rainwater collection. We stand by our concerns about this not being a sustainable site, and we read with interest the idea that a rural lane with no pavements or street lighting and known for fast car driving is seen as encouraging the use of cycles. There's no public transport, so residents would most likely drive, as walking or cycling is dangerous, and it's disingenuous to claim the lack of footpaths adjacent to the road does not discourage walkers. It focuses those wishing to walk to find other ways of reaching their objectives. Even the inspectorate acknowledged that occupiers would be unlikely to walk the route due to the lack of footpaths and lighting, and accepting that weather conditions may influence the level of cycling throughout the year. We are baffled why, having said that, they then seem to disregard it. We recommend the tree officer's involvement, as they are the expert, to ensure the appropriate tree root protection and a tree survey are not overlooked. Our request that the bio-rock system drainage plan is referred to the Upper Medway Internal Drainage Board is because they're more knowledgeable about such matters and would ensure that the proposal is appropriate. As always, we endeavour to draw the Planning Committee's attention to the areas we have concerns about, following the planning guidance at our disposal for your consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we now have Mr. Briley for the applicant.
Good evening, Chair, members. I had prepared a long statement relating to the proposal. However, the report prepared by the officer is far more detailed than I could convey in 3 minutes. Therefore, I will just highlight the elements of the development. The original proposal was for 3 new builds. Now it's down to 1, following discussions both with the officers, the refusal of that scheme and the inspectorate, and taking account of the comments made by both the original refusal and the inspectorate's comments, contrary to statements just voiced by the parish council. The inspector did not comment adversely relating to the location of the scheme. He just said that most people would not walk along the roads anyway. They would use cycles, and therefore he supported it in his report. Again, I feel that the comments not highlighted within the report sufficiently is the water collection system for the 2 units. They're underground in their tanks. That water will be collected and used to irrigate the gardens free of use, obviously. Both units will have air source heat pumps and solar panels. The reason for the solar panels in conjunction with the air source heat pumps is that I think everyone knows that air source heat pumps on their own are not that efficient. Moving on to the scheme for the new build design has been altered following comments from neighbours and the officer. The northern section balcony was removed and the garages have been moved away from the northern boundary, which relates to the tree, put on the southern boundary adjacent to the existing garages. In terms of the scheme itself, as you can see from the photographs, the current project is a breaker's yard, and any scheme removing broken cars from that sort of area must be conducive to the environment and to the community itself. Following that, I think that
Most of the other items have been covered by the officer's report. It is detailed and it appears to be accurate and relates to previous applications that have come before the committee. So I don't wish to waste time by using up all 3 minutes. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the officer's report is very detailed, and I think it's a very good report. Actually, it covers the issues extremely well. But the two big issues here are the fact it is a development in the open countryside, and two, the sustainability argument. As far as the development in the open countryside, I think it's fair to say that this, and the applicant's already said it, but it's an improvement. Actually, it is an enhancement because we got a breaker's yard at the back of the site, and this would actually improve the site, I think. So I think that answers that particular point pretty well, and I think you can't just say no to development in the countryside. If it enhances it, I think there's a very strong argument for favour of it. The sustainability argument is an interesting one because clearly walking from the site would be a very challenging thing to do. I think it's fair to say. The road is bendy. People do drive it around it pretty quickly. So getting to a bus, and I am a bus user, so I support the use of buses, but it would be difficult. But I do believe it is for cyclists, and two of my sons do cycle along that road, so I'm aware of this. I think it is possible. It's possible, presumably, provided you have the right equipment and you've got a high-vis jacket and various things. I think that is doable. To say you can't cycle would, I think, be pretty unrealistic. So I think it answers the sustainability argument quite well. The other point, and I do sympathise with the parish council, but I am a member of the parish council, but I don't cover this part of it. I stay away from the planning on the parish council, and clearly they are concerned about development in the countryside. I get it, but I think that point has been very well answered in the report in particular. The other issue, of course, is, and it's been touched on in some of the other applications, is our 5-year housing supply. And as I understand it, I think we're in what we call the tilted balance. So I may be wrong here, but people more expert than me will probably say something on this. So any development, clearly, that is one of the issues you do need to consider as well. So taking this all in all, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, I think this is, from my perspective, and I will be interested to hear what other councillors say if they do wish to comment on this. But I think the proposal put forward is a reasonable one and something that I think could be supported. Thank you. I won't put a proposal in at the moment, but I'd like to hear what other people have to say if they have anything at all to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Harwood.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I broadly agree with the ward councillor in terms of the reuse of this site. However, the report, and I couldn't find it in the files, there are a couple of buildings on the site, and I just wondered about the bat surveys that have been carried out for those buildings. And also, I know there's quite a big pond quite close to here, and there's one that's quite surrounded by trees, and it's a real kind of great crested newt country. So when the surface water drainage and the tank that's described and so on has been put in, I think we need to annotate that condition with the wildlife friendly surface water drainage infrastructure. Otherwise the newts just follow the curb line and fall down the drain very quickly. And it doesn't matter that there's kind of a breaker's yard and cars there. You tend to find the wildlife tends to find a lot of cover, and they're quite warm, nice places to be. So they're not so keen. They don't worry about the aesthetics. So I would just like to go back on those two issues as to whether we check those buildings for bats, and two, that we can get the drainage infrastructure condition right.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. I've also got the trees that the Staplehurst Parish pointed out. Are they retained, or are they due to go?
So starting with the trees, the plans indicate that trees would be retained. If you've got concerns, we can beef up the condition 7 or condition 6, which has the landscape management plan. It's 5 years currently, so we could increase that. The applicant has indicated that they would be willing to agree to a pre-commencement condition requiring tree protection measures. Details of those to be submitted. In terms of the bat surveys, there wasn't bat surveys with the application. There was a PA, preliminary ecological, like a desktop assessment. Sorry, not desktop, just a preliminary ecological assessment, which didn't indicate any protected species, but there are no detailed surveys.
Okay, could we possibly condition that detailed survey needs to be supplied?
I think that needs to be dealt with pre-decision.
Yeah, I just coming back on it. I mean, if this were an agricultural barn with a corrugated iron roof and an open structure like that, I think we would be asking for those checks to make sure that there's no kind of brown long ears up in the cracks and things, because it looks pretty good habitat to me. And in terms of the GCN issue, within a 50-metre radius of known ponds, you need to take some cognizance. And it's standard anywhere on the Weald, basically. So I will take officers' advice as to the way this needs to be done, but
like William said, we can't condition it because, to be blunt, if bats were found or any other protected species, it'd be after the Lord Mayor's show, so to speak. Yeah, the way forward would be for you councillors to give me delegated powers to ask for more detailed surveys. And sorry, just to be specific, that was in relation to bats and great crested neds.
Yeah.
Just a question of clarification. On the front page, it says Staplehurst Golf Club and Clubhouse. Is that, it's not mentioned anywhere in the document, it's next to a golf course.
It's just not mentioned in the report. I don't think it's relevant to the application.
I just wondered if it's a shared access, or do they get into the golf club elsewhere?
Can't answer that question.
That one. It's actually, it is a neighbouring piece of land. It was an old golf course. It no longer is, but it's got a separate access to it.
Thank you, because I wondered if the ponds were old golf ones.
Okay, councillors. So we're clear that it's got its own access. So we can give delegated, if we're mindful to approve, give delegated authority to the officers to seek those surveys, and also on condition 6, boost the conditions so that we have root protection for the trees. Yeah. Okay. So I'm happy to propose with those conditions. Okay. Have a seconder. Okay. I'll go to the vote then. All in favour? Unanimous. Okay. Approved. Thank you. Moving on. Item 16, Spot Lane, Beersford, Kent. I'll move to the officer to introduce.
Thank you, Chairman. This application proposes replacement of the existing garage and garden shed with two-story end of terrace property. The current scheme is a resubmission of a previous scheme granted permission in April last year. This previous permission is still extant and is a strong material consideration in the assessment of this current application. The design differences include a change from hip to gable roof form and a rear roof addition. This is the image of the area view of the application site. The next photograph on your screen is the application site from Spot Lane. So this is the garage that is being replaced with the two-story end of terrace property. The next photograph on your screens, the next image is the previously approved development in back in April last year. This shows the roof slightly different from what is currently being proposed. The next image is the footprint of the proposed building. This is followed by the proposed building itself, showing the rear extension and the roof extension to the rear. So the scale, layout, design, and plot coverage is in keeping with the local character. There is no harm to residential amenity. The scheme provides a good standard of accommodation for future occupants. The scheme is acceptable in terms of highway safety and parking. KCC Highways were consulted and are happy with the new assets being formed from the existing building, the frontage of the existing building. The proposed scheme is in accordance with the Maidstone Borough Local Plan Review and the MPPF. Available information on the Council's housing land supply position and the stand permission lends further weight to a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Okay, Councillor Ash.
Right. Good evening, Chair, members, officers. Vested Parish Council Planning Committee are losing the will to live over the number of planning applications / amendments for this particular site. It all kicked off in 2014. The application was later withdrawn. Then in 2020, it all started again. Vested Parish Council recommended refusal for a May application and a November application. And the Borough Council actually granted planning permission for the application in May. So that was the first grant of a planning application. 21, 22, 23, it went a bit quiet, except for in 2021, a lawful development certificate for loft conversion, rear dormer, and a change in the roof line to the original semi-detached house. The Maidstone Borough Council approved that second application granted, but neither of these two applications have ever been acted upon. Then in February 2024, application to demolish the garage, carport, garden shed, erect one dwelling, semi-detached with a hip roof, and the Parish Council said yes, and so did Maidstone Borough Council, but it was never acted upon. And then in 2024 November, another application, erect a self-build two-story detached house. Vested Parish Council said no to this one, and I don't even think it came before the Borough Council. Today we have that November application back again with changes. The house is now semi-detached. It was supposed to be detached originally. Windows in the roof at the back and the front, whereas before there were only windows in the roof at the back. Extended roof, the roof was set back before. They've even added a patio door, 4, now 5. One window in the rear first floor, there was 2. 2 windows in the roof, there was 1 at the back. And originally there were to be bay windows to mirror those of the two semis. These are now flat. The application itself states a 2-story dwelling. Surely if you go up into the roof, that is a 3-story. It also mentions an attached garage. The garage is detached. It sits separate to the house. 2 inaccurate statements. Will the development contribute positively to the locality? In the opinion of the parish council, no. It's cramped. It significantly shades a neighbouring garden. The gable end does not mirror the hip end of the adjoining semi, number 15. And this goes against supplementary planning guidelines. The front flat windows don't mirror the bay windows of either 13 or 15. How many more applications will have to be made before the applicant finally decides what he or she, we don't know who the applicant is, really wants, especially as this application is self-billed? Bexley Parish Council would ask that the committee refuses planning permission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ash. Okay. Councillor Spooner, first of all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some interesting comments there from the Parish Council. Unfortunately, we have no control over what applicants do, what they submit and what they do and what they don't do. So we just have, we can sometimes nearly lose the will to live as well, but it's par for the course. I can understand the Parish Council's concern, and I think this is one of those applications. Ideally, we'd like to refuse it if we could think of some good refusal reasons to do it, and I don't think we can. We granted a similar permission 4 or 5 years ago, or nearly 5 years ago. The site is cramped, but once again, it is not so cramped that we could justify refusing it. It's got adequate car parking, no objection from highways, no objection from their statutory consultees. I'm happy to move that we approve as per, as per the papers. But just to clarify, some of the comments made by my fellow councillor Val Springett, the site is cramped. I do agree, but I don't think there's much we can do about it. Obviously, I'm concerned about the trees, but we do have a condition on there requiring comprehensive landscaping tree planting condition scheme, which will include all the existing and proposed trees. As for the design of the windows, well, they probably want it to look a bit different to the existing. That's, once again, it's something I don't think we have the power really, or have the ability to sort of control. So I'm happy to move that we approve as per the papers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Spooner. Do you have a seconder for that? Not at the moment. I shall move to Councillor Harwood. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to speak now?
I've reserved my right. I just would parrot basically what's already been said. There are no grounds for refusal that I can actually see.
Okay, Councillor Gooch.
Thank you. Before I make any decision on this at all, I would really like to have some clarification because I am totally confused. On the plans, number 13, the plan I'm looking at, which I copied off the application website, it shows that number 13 is a completely separate house, and in the adjacent plot, that's the application site, and the application is clearly for an erection of a 2-story dwelling. That's plain and simple. However, if I look at one of the other plans, it shows that the application, the site is much wider it actually adjoins number 13. There is no gap. So when I looked at the plans on the website, I just felt confused. I completely understand that there is an existing planning application. That's great. You can have 100 planning applications on the same site if you want. Not a problem, as long as you decide to do one of them. But even then, I don't think you're obliged to build something just because you've got planning permission for it. But what I am confused about is one of the plans on here that gives the ground floor, the first floor, and the second floor. We can't surely approve this because there is a danger. It actually shows that the wall encroaches on next door's land. So I would have thought that if the applicant wishes to change his mind at all, then surely he should be applying to amend the original site for 13 and 13A. But to come in and ask for a permission for 13A as a separate dwelling, I'm just totally confused, because if we approve an independent application for a separate dwelling, it is capable of being built as a separate planning application. Do you see what I mean? The site plans don't match with what the application is for. And I think we could be getting we could go down a very awkward route here. It's one or t'other, isn't it?
Okay.
Sorry, but am I being really dense? I can show you that I've got the Doonses here.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Chester to clarify. Right.
Thank you for your comments. I do agree that the initial plans submitted are very confusing. But then when you look on the system, there's been 3 separate amendments. So the one showing on your screen currently is the last amendment. So it shows the building attached to number 13. The previous ones show the building as a detached building, and that is where the confusion is coming from. Yes, so we asked them to review the plans, I think 3 times before they got it right. So this is the current plan on your screen, which is correct. Thank you.
As I understand, in effect. They also seem to go to a gabled end.
Yes.
Would you mind just taking the councillors through that?
As has been already indicated, there was an application back in 2001 to change the roof of the building from hipped to gable extension. So this was a lawful development certificate, which is allowed under the GPDO. The council approved this application. So technically, there's permission for that to take place. The previous scheme that was approved back in 2023, the date was 12th of April 2024. That was when the decision was issued, was for a hipped roof. And this is the one currently showing on your screen. So as you can see, they opted to attach the roof of this building to the existing hipped roof. And then the rear part of the building had a rear extension, which also had a hipped roof. So what they are planning to currently do is to completely do away with that previous scheme and have this scheme, which is now showing on your screen. As you can see from this, the building is attached to the existing building. You can see there are 2 roof lights on the front elevation, on the front roof slope. To the rear, you have a rear projection, which extends about 3 meters, a 2-story projection. And then the single-story element extends about 4 meters from the rear elevation. Above the 2-story extension, you have a dormer, a box dormer, which is not very attractive. But we always say that whilst pitched roofs are preferable, if you cannot see it from the local streetscape, then the harm is very limited. So we think that is acceptable in this case. When you look on the proposed north elevation, which is a side elevation that would face onto the neighboring property, they've opted to put in some windows there to break up the bulk. So you're not just going to be staring. If you are driving along spot lane, you're not going to be staring at a blank wall. There are windows there to break the bulk. The design itself is not exceptional, but then it's not bad enough to refuse.
Sorry to coming back, Francis, and thank you very much for the explanation. The elevation in the bottom right, shouldn't the neighbouring property have a hipped end?
As part of the application, they are extending the existing roof, which is the hipped roof. So this roof is being extended to a hip to gable extension. As I said previously, there is actually permission for that through a 2021 application, which granted a lawful development certificate. Obviously, this permission probably would have been expired by now. But in terms of the GPDO, it can be done without planning permission within certain parameters. And we think that there is no reason to object to the roof being extended. I think one of the points that Rob raised earlier on is about the extension, the roof extension, on balancing the appearance of the pair of, or the symmetry of the pair of semi-detached houses. That is regrettable, but then in planning terms, the neighbor could essentially apply to extend their roof as well to create more room in the building. So normally, even though visually it's not appealing to see a semi-detached house having a pitched roof effectively, one having a hipped roof, is something that has become common in urban areas, so we cannot raise objection to it.
Okay, hopefully that clarifies.
I feel much clearer about it. I'm just a bit knocked because it says clearly erection of a self-built 2-story dwelling. It's actually a 2-story extension, isn't it?
No, the building itself will be its own dwelling. It's attached to the.
Oh, semantics. All right.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. I'll be told.
Go on, Councillor Summersgill.
So can I just clarify, what we've got is a pair of semi-detached houses there with curved bay windows and a nice little feature on top there, and a hipped roof, and we're intending now to have a row of 3 houses completely unbalanced by not repeating what's at the front on the new one and having a gable end at one side and a hip to the other. Sounds completely unbalanced to me from the street scene.
So there did used to be a policy that did go about symmetry that is no longer in the MPPF. So it's not something that we can actually highlight. As Josh has pointed out, it is not the prettiest application, but it is compliant. Is what people. Yeah. So
just to add a little to what the chairman said, when you look at the plans, the proposed plan.
Francis, I don't think we need to go back over it. To you, sorry, Councillor Spooner.
Just going to comment sort of in passing that I expect it'll be long before number 15 does the same. But there we are. That's life.
On that note, then I'm going to go to the vote for approval. All those in favour? That's 8-4. Those against? 2 against. And no abstentions. There is that one. Okay, so that is approved. Okay. Moving on to item 13. This is a NBC application, so I'll move to the officer to introduce.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to correct, sorry, Chairman, I'm going to correct you. This is not an NBC application. This is actually the confirmation of a tree preservation order, which is slightly different. So just as sort of a background for that, because one of these hasn't come to committee for quite a while. When preservation orders are made by the council, it's made on a provisional basis for 6 months. Within the 6 months, obviously people have the right to object to any order. And then within that 6 months, the council then can look at those objections and consider whether they're appropriate or whether they're reasonable in terms of what they put forward. Then within the 6 months, the council has to confirm an order made permanent based on any objections they receive or any inquiries they get from third parties, etc. So in terms of tonight's TPO, this was made to protect 2 individual trees in a group. Okay, here, I'll show you. There is planning history on the site, which is shown on the papers, which obviously is part of the history of the site. But in essence, you can see here on the plan, the TPO protects a number of trees, or 2 single individual trees and a group, which are 2 holly trees, in an area of what is quite a nice amenity space that sort of lies to the western side of the Rain Road, but sort of centres of Chatterton Court. This is a view from Chatterton Court of the trees shown from the main road. So they're quite a prominent feature, and obviously quite a setting of the sort of rural bit of the road, really. This is the first tree. This is T1. This is a Norway maple. This again is quite a large tree, prominent from the road, as you can see. It's visually prominent from the street, saying quite an asset. Second tree is a copper beech, again in a prominent position, and has yet to make quite a statement, but still makes a statement already, and by virtue of it being quite a young tree. So it's going to obviously be a really focal tree in the future. And again, this is more in the centre of the site. These are 2 holly trees, but on the TPO, they're classed as a group because they're quite close growing trees. Obviously, this preservation order has had 2 objections, which are summarised in the report. The objections are saved from the landowner and the landowner's tree consultant. The landowner's tree consultant is primarily based on the objection of the 2 holly trees, which is G1 in front of you there. Basically, he's questioning the tempo assessment in terms of how we assess the amenity of those trees and generally their condition, saying that he doesn't think that our assessment has accurately assessed their condition and they're not worthy of inclusion in the TPO. Obviously, our statement in terms of our reply to his objections are in the report. I'm happy to go through any one that members would like to go through, but obviously there's quite a lot of them, so I don't want to spend too much time going through it. But as long as members are well happy to consider that those trees do form part of that, and there's nothing in there that they shouldn't be, then obviously the recommendation on the papers is obviously, having duly considered the objections received by us or received to us, it's still considered expedient to confirm the order as it stands, including the 2 holly and the 2 trees as a confirmed order. Thank you.
Thank you. I am mindful as per the papers, but I've seen it. Councillor Harwood has indicated. Councillor Harwood.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is in my ward, and there's a really peculiar planning history to this. You would think that was the green space for the relatively modern development in Chatterton Court, and that's what all the residents thought. And then the developer, who had held on to it for decades, suddenly decided to sell it on the private market, and it was bought by a builder. And the site is covered in trees, had always had public access, and it was a very, very kind of unsatisfactory state of affairs. But what I would say in terms of the challenge the two very large hollies are not just important in terms of their streetscape impact, but also in terms of the biodiversity contribution they make is very significant. And the fact that one has got a different growth form to the other in terms of more open canopy and so on, that's what you get with hollies. So I absolutely support the expert opinion of this and Mr. Hegley's report, and would therefore like to move that we do confirm the TPOs going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Cleaver. Yeah. But it's actually nice to see them grow to that kind of size. Obviously in the woodland normally they're not normally of that kind of size. Councillor Summersgill.
Can I just check?
Oh, sorry. Before that, Councillor Cleaver, as you seconded, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right.
Again, can I just check? Page 25 says Appendix B, copy of proposed site layout plan for refuse planning application, but I can't find that in all the rest of the papers. No.
To answer your question, Councillor Summersgill.
I'm just thinking, it's some part of this drawing apparently. Is Milton House the proposed thing, or is that another house? Jeez.
It is in the papers, but unfortunately whoever photocopied it or put it in the thing has actually cut off half the plan. So it only shows the very, very far end of the site and not the actual whole site itself. So if members are just happy, just quickly, I will try and find the
Okay. Okay, Councillor, yeah, Councillor, is it going to make, is it going to make any difference to your decision?
Right, here we go. Sorry, members, it took me a little while to find it in the archives, but basically, can you see that? Get rid of that. Try. Right. There's the house there, but the bigger plan, which will be more, is there. So just to give you an idea, the holly trees are here in this bit here. This big tree to the right hand side is the copper beech, which lies within the grass verge along the road, and the Norway maple is the tree over in the far corner. So as members can see, obviously the copper beech and the Norway maple technically are shown to be retained and potentially could be quite easily protected in terms of their distance from the property. But clearly the two holly trees, which are obviously the bone of contention in terms of developing the site, are the ones that would be lost as part of that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Are we happy to accept that as an urgent update? A very urgent one. Thank you. Sorry. That's okay. That's all right. Thank you. Okay. So got a proposer, got a seconder. All in favour? Unanimous. That's approved. Okay. Moving on then. We go to item 18. East Went, Chartway Street, Sutton Valence. An item that we deferred. I'll move to the officer to introduce the item.
Thank you. So, yeah, the application was taken to committee last month. It seeks a new 5-bedroom dwelling. It's been called into committee because it's a departure from the local plan. It's been over previously. There's been appeal decisions in the area and previous applications on site. The application was deferred. There was concerns relating to the trees at the rear of the site, additional ecological information for trees relating to the area at the front of the site, and amending condition 6 to update it to include a 20-year management plan. Following the previous committee, the trees at the front of the site have been felled, whilst the group of trees immediately to the east of the site, or at the front of the site, are subject to a tree preservation order. The ones on the application site are not. A tempo survey was requested. This is the industry guidance to scoring a tree if it merits a TPO. Now that the trees have been removed and would have required removal had the application been permitted, it's not been considered necessary to do so. In terms of the trees at the rear of the site, so another picture of the front of the application site, proposed dwelling be located adjacent to the existing dwelling, which you can see there. So these are the trees at the front of the site. They are to be retained. They are still present. The long grassed area you can see at the front. So this is the south of the application site viewing north. So the trees there would be the rear extent of the proposed dwelling's garden, and then beyond this would be undisturbed. As I've indicated in the the deferred report, the site is well contained by the surrounding landscaping, and views into the site were very limited until the landscaping was removed. So considering the trees have been removed, it's not been considered necessary to request further additional ecological works. As I said, condition 6 has been updated to include the 20-year management plan. The applicant submitted a tree survey with the application. Tree officers were consulted and didn't raise any objections to this. As previously, taking into balance the lack of housing supply, the replacement landscaping at the rear of the site, and the appeal decisions in the area, it's recommended the application be approved as per the papers.
Thank you, Will. I believe as well, when we deferred this, we asked about the tree plant towards the rear. Can you enlighten us on some detail on the?
That's part of the condition, the species specific. We've updated the condition 6 to include the 20-year management plan.
Sorry, William. I think you have told me. Have the trees been, the trees that were there, have they been uprooted? So the stumps are still up.
Okay. Whose ward is this? Oh, no one's. Let's hear. Does anyone wish to speak on the item? I say, Councillor Howard.
Well, this is very depressing, isn't it? Frankly, and out of order, I would suggest as well. Really. In terms of the site, as just everything's gone. Usually we say retain the cordwood for biodiversity and so on, but it's just been cleared. It's just scraped, and because this is proposed as self-build, they don't need to do any biodiversity net gain. So there is literally nothing. So they've just found a loophole in order to clear this site and everything before it could be surveyed, before you could find any protected wildlife and so on. So the only thing we have left in our armoury is the landscaping on the square piece of land at the end of the back garden. And I think we need to try and ensure optimal mitigation for what has been lost. And interestingly, this part of Sutton Valence, as you kind of head out along to kind of East Sutton direction, has some of the most interesting tree cover in the entire borough. There are elms and so on there that you don't find anywhere else. So we need to be absolutely sure that that landscaping scheme on the rear of the site is appropriate and will have some longevity. And I wonder whether what we need to do is to TPO the tree planting, the new tree planting. So essentially, we get almost a kind of succession that we move in and we do that. I know we've got the 20-year protection policy on it, but because we got Mr. Hegley here, I don't know if he has any thoughts or any views, because on the, if you like, the Greensand Ridge Scarp side of this development, the block of compensatory woodland, how we can make sure that that does not become phase 2 of this development.
To put me on the spot, yes, I mean, obviously landscaping conditions that are put on replanting, usually there's a 5-year continuous that protects them from any removal and replacement, etc. After that 5 years, there's nothing to stop the landowner or subsequent landowners removing any of that landscaping, because there's no protection on it. So subsequently, we could look at, after the 5 years or prior to the 5 years, putting a TPO on any trees that are considered to be suitable for that. So that is something we could do.
Okay, so
Catherine, just want to clarify that it's 20 years in the report. 20. Yeah, it's 20. Yeah. And I just want to make councillors aware about the urgent update as well. So.
Yeah, I'm. At what point can newly planted trees be TPO'd? I mean, is it, do we have a recommendation that says in 5 years, or as soon as they're put in the ground, because they're so important, do we then essentially TPO the standard trees or whatever we put in?
From memory of the legislation, there is no set size a tree is suitable for protection or not protection. I'd have to check, but from my understanding of the legislation is that if newly planted trees can be protected, if when they reach maturity or gain maturity, they provide an amenity that can be seen from a public area or public space.
Yeah, that's interesting, because when you have a TPO tree removed and you put a replacement in, the replacement is still a TPO tree, isn't it? Even though it can be relatively small, because it will grow back into the important landscape tree. Is that? No,
a tree is only automatically protected by the tree it's replaced with if it's removed as that's right. If it's replaced as part of a condition, it's not. It's only if it's replaced, if it's removed under a 5-day notice because it's dead, dying, or not dangerous. That's not the word now, but dead, dying. Sorry, dead and dangerous, not dying. You really said something right. Or if it's removed illegally, and then tree replacement notice goes on it, and then it will automatically then become part of the TPO that it was there when the original tree was there.
Okay, so in light of the fact that the block of replacement tree planting to the rear of the site is visible from public rights of way to the south by the Greensand Ridge, and will in time be visible from Chartway Street again. Can we give delegated powers to the officers to explore the most effective way to get a TPO onto the newly planted trees, just to ensure that we're doing everything by the book, because I think it's the only way forward, really.
Okay, I think rather than say explore, we say that we want the TPO. But I want to be a bit more strong with those words for you, Truth. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to add to this, and I'm not being dramatic. I visited this site when it was first reported to committee, and I just showed the chairman the photographs I took. The frontage, I'm not knocking the rear at all, but the frontage just past tense stood out like a queen beak. You know, sorry to say this, but I think it's quite a desolate area. It's devoid of trees, and well, I can show councillors a photograph. I think we should try at least to get some kind of tree planting at the front, because that was the only sort of verdant site frontage there. Yeah.
So we're keeping the area plan up. The area, the front layout. Okay, what about the connect that one? Just put your cursor to the
Presumably there is some space to at least get some hedge plant in.
I think with that then we go for giving the office delegated powers to
to TPO the replacement block of tree planting to the rear of the site, and in terms of the landscaping scheme, ensure that there is, whatever boundary treatment can be put in, a native hedge or whatever, because we've done that elsewhere in Chartway Street and that's worked quite well.
Just to add to the TPO, the remaining tree that's still left.
Sorry, can I just add, Will, to the front of the site, your photograph shows there's one remaining tree. Is that tree part of the tree protection as part of the site? Because you only show the back trees. No, what I mean is, what I'm saying is there no tree protection around that tree shown on any of the drawings? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the site. Because obviously it's the only tree now left on the frontage and the only tree that provides amenity in terms of, so it's quite important that we ensure that it's retained and protected. Right, so just obviously, what's the frontage in terms of the development? What's going on along the front? Have we got any chance of getting any landscaping in there? Okay, all right.
Okay, so because we've had a bit of to and fro, Councillor Summersgill.
Yeah, it's just me trying to clarify something. In 102, the group of trees immediately to the east are subject to a tree preservation order. The ones on the application site are not. But both the pictures you've shown me, there's no trees in front of that house to the house directly to the east.
The application site is where the trees have been removed. So it's the trees to the east of where the trees have been removed. That is subject to tree preservation order. So just a second, if we go on. So the stretch of trees here are protected. The application site's here. Trees here were not protected. So just outside this tree protection area. Apologies. Yes.
Not in front of that house to the east.
Apologies.
Right.
Yes, you're right. To the west. Yep. Apologies.
Okay. So I think what we're asking for is that remaining tree to have a TPO plan as well.
Yeah.
So,
Tonight.
just clarify that now. All right. Well, let's get a good let's get through this. So just to be clarified, I think obviously we've gone backwards and forwards a bit. The new planting area is to be TPO'd as well at the end of the year, or as soon as they go in the ground, shall we say. And the single tree that's left to the front to also be TPO'd, and delegated powers to the officers to work with the applicant to get some enhanced landscaping at the front. Okay. So, have to move it. I'll second it. So, Councillor Spooner, do you want to come in? Okay, ready to go. Okay, so all in favour with the amendments and the delegated powers? Okay, that was unanimous. Sorry, Councillor Clare, can you? So Debbie and Councillor Perry. Debbie needs to count.
I'm sorry.
You need to, yeah. Okay, so that, yeah, so that is unanimous and passed, approved. Okay, with the
Chairman, Mr. Hegley has gone beyond the call of duty, waiting for the penultimate application to do his bit.
Yeah.
But it's lucky he did, on account of the fact we had this one right at the end.
There we go. Okay, so moving on. Appeals.
Yeah, unfortunately, on the whole, pretty bad actually. I sound like a broken record, but in Maidstone, we're not a Greenbelt authority, so we get a lot of proposals on brownfield sites. And the last appeal, item 11, Cherry Barn, Old Tree Lane, it's near Bushing Lane. So one of the things one of the issues inspectors have to consider very carefully is whether or not it's a sustainable location. As we do every month, I lose track of how many times sustainable is actually mentioned, but probably turning into Morrissey. But I doubt if Maidstone's in its present guise is going to produce a new local plan. I think the way forward, whilst Maidstone Borough Councils as a planning authority still exists, is more SPDs. I really do think the HMO one was a good document. I think it was a genuine partnership between officers and councillors. It was led by councillors, and so it should be. And officers populated the detail. But my recommendation would be that you have an SPD sort of setting out what are sustainable locations, because we just talk about it ad nauseum. The reason I'm drawing that out is at the moment it's a complete vacuum. So the inspector on Cherry Barn allowed it, and he said, I quote, "Because it's only a one-bedroom unit, it's unlikely that families will occupy it, And actually, in terms of sustainability, I'm only interested in journeys to schools. And the applicant is only proposing 1 unit. So my prediction is we get an awful lot of applications for 1-bedroom dwellings in the countryside. But yeah, at the moment, it is a vacuum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jarman. So on that note, do we want to recommend to the cabinet that cabinet member that an SPD is looked at for sustainability and what defines it?
I was going to say to write that down. Just passing gift.
So are we in agreement that we wish the cabinet look at it? Okay, thank you. On that note then, Councillor Thompson.
May I ask Mr. Jarman's pass comment on items 2 and 3 on page 177, please?
I'm afraid I can't in any detail, Councillor Thompson. I mean, I think it's very tough, even in the national landscape, with gypsy and travel applications, because obviously what the appellants always throw at us is this need which is not being met. So I think in sort of colloquial language, I think we're always on the back foot, and I think we did well, if that's the right term, to get one of the appeals dismissed.
For me, on that one, it's a site on the Scarp Slope immediately to the west of the A249, and the inspector, in his summing up, basically said it was a very well hidden site, even though it was on the Scarp, and it's right next to a dual carriageway. So therefore, what harm is being done to the national landscape? And frankly, I agree. You can't see. I mean, if you get in the site and walk down, you can see the little settlement there, but it is not intrusive in the landscape, even though it's in a national landscape. So I think it's about on its merits.
No, in that case, councillors, no one's got anything else? To limit to a close and bid you good night.